The rain came down like punishment that night, hard, relentless, and cold. It drummed on the rusted tin roofs of the little Texas town, washing away footprints, secrets, and tears. But not hers. Anna stumbled out of the small wooden house at the end of Miller Road, clutching a thin blanket around her youngest baby. The door behind her slammed shut with a final crack, her husband's voice echoing in the night, "Get out. I don't need no more useless mouths to feed, especially girls." Her breath came in shaky gasps. Her face was swollen from his blows, her lips split, and her hands trembled as she reached for her two older daughters. Barefoot, wide-eyed, they stood by the gate, silent, scared, soaked to the bone. The oldest, barely 7, held her little sister's hand tight, whispering, "Mama's gonna be okay." But even she didn't believe it. Anna looked down that empty dirt road, the rain mixing with her tears. The world felt cruel and endless, yet she kept moving. Each step squelched in the mud, but she held her baby close like a shield against the world's hate. "Mama's here, sweetheart," she whispered. "Mama's got you." Lightning flashed, lighting up the small town she'd known her whole life. Behind her was nothing but pain, a house that once held her dreams, now filled only with broken promises and rage. Ahead of her, just darkness. Her mind drifted back to the day her first daughter was born. Her husband had smiled back then, proud, until the doctor said, "It's a girl." His face had hardened. By the third child, he didn't even show up at the hospital. Now, as thunder rolled across the sky, Anna wrapped the blanket tighter and whispered to her baby, "You're not a mistake. You're my miracle." They reached the old oak tree by the road, the one that had stood there longer than any of them. She sank to her knees beneath it, the girls huddling close, their small bodies shaking. For a moment, she closed her eyes and prayed, not for herself, but for a sign, any sign, that kindness still existed. Out past the town limits, where the land stretched wide and empty beneath a curtain of rain, sat an old cattle ranch that hadn't known laughter in years. The wooden sign out front still read, "Carter Ranch," though most of the paint had long faded, just like the man who lived there. Thomas Carter sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at a plate of untouched stew. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Every sound in the house seemed to echo, creaking floorboards, the wind through the windows, the soft moan of the storm outside. But the thing that haunted him most was the silence. 2 years had passed since Mary, his wife of 30 years, lost her fight with cancer. Since then, Thomas hadn't gotten used to talking to an empty chair. His only son, Luke, had left for Dallas the next spring, chasing city lights and forgetting the man who'd taught him how to ride a horse, mend a fence, and pray before every meal. Thomas rubbed his rough hands together, the smell of hay and rain still on his clothes. He looked out the window, beyond the streaks of water sliding down the glass. The fields were soaked, the sky alive with thunder. And yet, something about the storm felt lonely. Like it was calling out to him. He stood, pushing his chair back with a sigh. The barn light flickered in the distance, he'd left it on again. But then, out of the corner of his eye, something moved. 3 small shapes, faint and struggling, appeared down the dirt road. At first, he thought it was just his imagination, maybe shadows from the trees. But then lightning flashed, and he saw them clearly, a woman and 2 little girls, soaked through, walking slow and stumbling with each step. Thomas's chest tightened. That old protective instinct, the one he'd buried after Mary died, flared up again. He muttered under his breath, "Greater than, ain't no soul deserves to be out in that kind of weather." Without another thought, he grabbed his worn leather coat and his keys from the hook by the door. The stew sat cold on the table, forgotten. The rain was still pounding when Thomas's old pickup rumbled down the dirt road, headlights cutting through sheets of water. The wipers squeaked in rhythm, struggling to keep the windshield clear. His heart thudded as he spotted the small group up ahead, 3 children and a woman barely holding herself upright. He slowed the truck and stopped a few feet away. For a moment, all he could hear was the rain hammering the hood and the faint sound of sobbing. The woman turned slightly, clutching a baby to her chest, her face pale beneath the porch light glow of a nearby house long abandoned. Thomas stepped out, pulling his hat low and his coat tight. The wind bit through his clothes as he called out, his voice deep but gentle. "Greater than, ma'am, you all right out here?" Anna froze, holding her breath. Her body tensed like a cornered animal. Her 2 older daughters pressed close to her legs, their eyes wide, full of fear and mistrust. She didn't answer. Thomas took another cautious step forward, hands open. Greater than, look, I ain't meanin' no harm. You got little ones with you, it ain't safe in this weather. Anna shook her head, backing away. We'll find our way, she said softly, her voice cracking. We don't need help. Something about her tone, defeated, trembling, cut deep into Thomas. He saw the bruises, the torn sleeve, the way her shoes were soaked through. She wasn't running to somewhere, she was running from something. He took a slow breath, his words coming from somewhere honest and raw. Greater than, you're coming with me. Anna's eyes filled with panic. No, please. My husband, heal. Thomas stopped her gently. Ain't nobody gonna hurt you here. Not tonight. Then he knelt down beside the girls, rain dripping from his hat. He shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around them, the fabric heavy and warm. Greater than, there now. You already found your way. Something in his voice, steady, kind, unbreakable, made Anna's guard begin to crumble. For the first time all night, she didn't feel invisible. The girls climbed into the pickup without hesitation. Anna stood there, the rain washing the blood from her lip, until finally she followed. The truck's engine sputtered as it pulled up the long gravel driveway of the Carter Ranch. The rain had slowed to a whisper, the sky still heavy with clouds, but the worst of the storm was over. Thomas parked beside the barn and turned off the ignition. For a moment, there was only silence, the kind that comes after chaos, when everyone's too scared to breathe. He turned toward Anna and her daughters, offering a small, tired smile. Come on in. It ain't fancy, but it's dry. Anna hesitated, clutching her baby tighter. The girls looked to her for permission, eyes wide and uncertain. She nodded softly, and they followed Thomas up the wooden porch steps. The door creaked open to reveal a warm, lived-in home, scuffed floors, old photographs on the wall, the faint smell of pine and coffee lingering in the air. Thomas moved quickly, lighting the fireplace. Sit close to the fire, he said, his voice gruff but kind. You'll warm up faster. The girls gathered in front of the flames, huddling together, their tiny hands outstretched toward the heat. Steam rose from their wet hair as the orange glow painted their faces in soft light. In the kitchen, Thomas rummaged through the pantry, pulling out eggs, bread, and a bit of cheese. He cooked quietly, every movement steady and careful. He hadn't made dinner for anyone in years, but somehow, it felt natural again. Anna sat at the edge of the table, her eyes darting between her daughters and the man who had brought them here. She finally spoke, her voice low and shaky. Greater than, why are you helping us? Thomas paused, his back still turned as he stirred the eggs. 'Cause someone should have done the same for me once, he said quietly. And they didn't. He turned, placing plates of food on the table. Eat. Don't worry about tomorrow tonight. For a moment, Anna just stared. Then she picked up a fork, tears filling her eyes as her daughters began to eat. The crackle of the fire, the clinking of utensils, and the sound of soft laughter filled the room, a sound that hadn't been heard in that house for a very long time. Morning came slow and gentle, painting the Texas sky in soft shades of golden rose. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean and quiet. The smell of wet earth and wildflowers drifted through the open windows of the Carter Ranch. Inside, the fire had burned down to glowing embers, and for the first time in a long while, peace seemed to linger in every corner. Thomas stood by the kitchen window, a mug of coffee warming his calloused hands. Out in the yard, he could see Anna helping his horses, her long hair still damp but glinting in the morning light. The three girls were running barefoot through the grass, laughing as they chased the chickens that scattered in every direction. Their giggles carried across the open land like a song the ranch hadn't heard in years. He couldn't help but smile. The sight tugged at something deep inside him, a memory of simpler times, when his wife used to hum while hanging laundry and his boy played with the barn cats. He hadn't realized how empty his world had become until now, when it suddenly didn't feel empty anymore. Anna turned and caught him watching. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she walked toward the porch, wiping her hands on her skirt. You don't have to keep us, she said softly. We'll move on soon. I don't want to be a burden. Thomas shook his head, setting his cup down. You think this old place don't need life in it again, he said with a chuckle. Truth is, I'd near forgotten what laughter sounded like. Anna's eyes filled with tears. You've already done more than anyone ever has for me. He looked at her kindly, the morning sun catching the silver in his hair. Maybe that's what we're all meant to do, give a little more than we think we can. The girls came running up then, holding a tiny chick in their hands, grinning from ear to ear. Thomas laughed, shaking his head. Looks like this old ranch finally got its heart back. Anna smiled through her tears. And this mama finally found a home.